Okay, so my name is David Kelley, and we have a bunch of all-stars with us today. We have Erik Mork from Sparkling Client, Silverlight MVP from Portland. We have Jeremiah Morrill. Is that pronounced right?
Good enough.
Good enough. He is a Uber dev in the whole WPF world, and we have Fabio, the principal architect for Wirestone, and we thought we would have Victor on the line, but he's being a slacker today and not showing up. So we're going to go ahead and move forward. And so today we're just going to talk about MVVM for TARDs, which is started off kind of as a joke, but you know, it's really helped explain MVVM to people, at least in the work that I've been doing. And so we're going to quickly build a very simple MVVM app using MVVM for TARDs. So first, I wanted to give a little bit of background. Last year, I was really trying to wrap my head around Prism and a composite application development, and I think the turning point was I finally found some podcasts that I thought were pretty reasonable explaining it, and those were done by our own Erik Mork, and he does a great job of those. I encourage anyone who's trying to get their mind around Prism to start there. But for me, for learning MVVM, I really found a lot of the material out there, not specific to Prism, but related to MVVM, to just be so convoluted and complicated, and not because MVVM is so complicated, but because a lot of the people are mixing all these other patterns. You know, they would do an article or a demo, and it'd be about MVVM, but they would show MVVM and commanding and mediator and about 5 or 6 other design patterns all at once and present that as MVVM, and then people wonder why they can't get their head around it. And not until you really understand it, sometimes it really doesn't make sense. So for a lot of people, I found it really took a lot of time. So I ran across this. I think after I saw those podcasts by Erik, I was been thinking to myself that we need demos like that, but just about MVVM itself before we start talking about some of these other things. And then I happened to run across this article by Jeremiah called MVVM for Tarded Folks Like Me, or MVVM and What It Means to Me. And I read through that, and I was just thinking, that's brilliant. We should have a Codeplex project with a whole new framework. So I contacted Jeremiah, and we seem to agree in principle on everything, and so I put together a little framework and posted it up on Codeplex, and called the TARD framework for MVVM at tard.codeplex.com, and the whole thing consists of a single class with 6 lines of code. Or no, not even, sorry, 3 lines of code. So it's extremely complicated, but it shows how simple it can be. Now, a lot of these other more baked frameworks, like Prism, really are for more significant, almost professional development. Like Prism is a great infrastructure that I would use at a company for a team for shrink-wrapped sorts of approaches with lots of developers and that sort of stuff. But for teaching MVVM by itself as a concept, I think this is probably the best place to start. And so I'm hoping that everyone here will participate and make fun of me or come up with witty comments or whatever you guys want to say. So feel free to interrupt me, and we'll just start in Visual Studio and see how easy it is to make a tarded application in Silverlight. So anyone want to say anything before we move forward?
Yeah, so I mean, this is Erik, and I just want to say, I think this is a really, really good idea. I've seen several MVVM talks and presentations, and they usually get very, very difficult very quickly. And this sort of parsimonious explaining of here's what you need is really great for folks.
So what about you, Jeremiah? What inspired you to write that article?
Well, I also had a lot of difficulty learning the MVVM pattern, just because the reasons that you stated earlier. I mean, they're just convoluted. They just mix a bunch of other patterns, and it took me a while to actually kind of pick it up just because of that. And I also have friends and colleagues that had similar issues. So I decided, hey, I'm just going to sit down, write an article as if I was just talking to myself, like a year ago. Hey, this is what MVVM is. It's not that difficult, and even a retard like me can get something like this done.
Well,
yeah, have you thought about starting a series? You know how there's the the idiots and the dummies and the those book series. Maybe you should start a TARD series.
Oh yeah, I was actually thinking about that.
So guys, I'll tell you this, and we'll leave this conversation for after the podcast or via email. But I've thought about that too, and there's some people at Microsoft that are kind of interested in it, and we'll talk. But let's move on with this. I actually had lunch with them today, actually. So, but let's get back to our first targeted application. So I'm going to be creating a base class here. I'm just going to cut and paste the code from my cheat sheet over here, right here, but I'm going to hide it off on my other screen. So while I'm doing that, Fabio, tell us how you got to believe in the one true religion of MVVM.
Yeah, the way it happened was very interesting because I keep hearing that's the way to go, and then I keep looking at articles and I was feeling a little guarded myself, It's like I can't figure out what is this thing. And then I did a leap of faith and said, okay, let me start with the most basic way of doing it, and then all of a sudden, halfway through the project, the light bulb came on. So it's almost like, man, I wish somebody would come up with something very simple and straightforward so that I could understand. And then once I got the hang of it, then that's the way I want to do things moving forward. And one thing that I thought was interesting, one of the things that people talk a lot about MVVM is the whole testability thing. So very recently, what I did is I was introducing people to MVVM and actually even to Silverlight. And what I did is I actually gave these guys the task to have unit tests pass. So basically, I wrote a unit test for a view model that was completely empty, and I said, guys, you first need to make this thing work. And of course, they were like, wait a minute, we're not doing Silverlight here. I said, yeah, you're not. You're doing view model, and I want you to make sure that this whole thing passes first. And then once that passed, I said, okay, guys, now we can get to some XAML. So I want you to wire up your view model code to your XAML. And then it was this whole light bulb saying, oh, my God, that's how it works. So I thought it was a very interesting experience. I mean, you're starting from the view model, you're starting from unit test, and then you get to XAML. And I thought that approach worked very well in that case.
That's great. So here's our extremely sophisticated, targeted framework. Our base class in the base class, if you download it off of Codeplex, it's called a TARD view model base. Here, let me bring it over here so we can see it. TARD view model base. But in our sample, I just called it my targeted base class. And basically, we're implementing iNotify property change. So we get some callbacks going on, and it's kind of the magic that makes our data binding work. So it's nice, simple, elegant, and it works. And it's really easy to do. So personally, for me, I like to start in the model. Do any of you guys do it differently? What do you guys think?
Yeah, that seems to be kind of like the first thing that seems easier to get started, because the model, typically you have your business objects in your problem domain. It's fairly easy to get started there.
Yeah, I agree. So I'll quickly write my model here. Basically, in this case, we're going to just return a value and set the value. Now, it could be talking to the database. It could be talking to Azure, RIA, whatever you want, XML files or some other hack. Could totally be here. But from our application standpoint, it doesn't really matter. So how about this? Erik, would you be able to explain to us what the model view and view model are while I'm stealing some code over here from this other class?
Yeah, I mean, I think the name is one of the most confusing names that we could have given a technology. I think most people are familiar with model view controller, right? We have our model, which is essentially the data. We have the view, which is the thing that the user sees, and then the controller is sort of the thing that ties those together. And model view model, so 3 parts, is essentially the same thing, where we take out that controller and we swap in something we call the view model. And go ahead.
No, I think that's perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's going to happen here is David's going to highlight the view model, and that's really the secret to this whole pattern. And once you understand the view model and its connection to the view, you know, that's all you need to get up and be running.
Well, thank you. That's perfect. So I'm going to try to build, and I think I need to grab the right name of my target base class right here. Bring that over to my view model. And magic. So like Erik said, this is kind of where the magic happens. We inherit our base class from our sophisticated framework that we're using, and we basically implement something that we can bind to in a view. So the whole idea then is that it's kind of a two-way conversation that abstracts all that data, all that logic from our view. And one of the things I like about MVVM is it makes it really easy for me to work with designers. I can provide design time data. I can provide an abstraction layer. It's great for testing. And like I know that one application you were talking about where you have the same view model that Fabio was talking about, have the same view model, and then used it basically in 2 different applications for Surface and for regular WPF, and being able to just swap out the different views without rewriting the universe and making it so extremely testable. Really, there's a lot of ROI on that, and that's why, at least for me, I'm totally smoking the MVVM track now. It's like my religion.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would just add to that and say, I mean, I think the real key thing to this is it keeps our business logic inside of the view model class, this class that is never exposed to the user's eyeballs directly. Instead, its members are exposed through binding. But, you know, that allows us to do some things. As Fabio pointed out, we can do unit testing against it, and we can just really, really test the heck out of it using, say, things like the Silverlight unit test framework. But the other thing is, since it is code, right, and it's not tied to a view piece, we can move it to WPF, we can move it to Surface, and in fact, I'm actually experimenting with a project of moving the view models to an iPhone. And when you do that, you actually have to have a little bit of binding infrastructure. And by the way, I should say that's using MonoTouch, which allows us to write C# on the iPhone.